Sex Talk, week 4. We are talking about boundaries. Boundaries are good and boundaries are powerful. I just want you to know that right out the gate. They are good and powerful. All right, when I was in high school, I had a friend that I would spend the nights with on the weekends and during the week, during the summer. And we would do all kinds of stuff. We would go to the mall. We would go on church trips. We would go to the park. We would ride in cars with boys. We would do all kinds of stuff. We would just hang out. And that's fine and great, hanging out with your friend and spending the night and doing stuff. But then it turned into, we're sneaking out after her curfew. Not my curfew, because my curfew doesn't apply at her house, right? No. Just so you know, the answer is no. That's not how it works. We started sneaking out after curfew, being around older people, older guys, not, and I don't want to say that it was right out the gate, making bad choices and decisions, but it kind of led into that. You go from hanging out with your friend and people that you know to, okay, well, now you're sneaking out past her curfew, riding in a car with guys that her parents don't know, your parents don't know, guys that aren't your age anymore. They're now older than you. They can drink. Why is 15, 16-year-old Rachel hanging out with 21-year-old guys? No. No. I thought it was cool. I wanted my friend to think I was cool, to still like me. Why? Because she picked on me constantly about stuff. Was she really my friend? Absolutely not. No, not if she picked on me, not if she made me feel dumb about who I was and insecure about things. That's not your friend. That's somebody that wants you around because they look cooler when you're around. So my friends were getting in cars with guys that were drinking. So now those guys are drunk. So now I'm in a car with drunk drivers. What am I doing? Hanging out with older, dangerous crowds. That's what I was doing. Why was I doing this? To make myself look cool. But at what point did I think about a boundary in any of this? Zero. The warning sign was way far back, and I had skipped right over it without ever noticing. Why? Because there were no boundaries when it came to our safety. The boundaries needed to start way earlier, and what exactly does that have to do with what we've been talking about in this series? Why did I need boundaries? It has to do with everything. There's more to it than just sex and sexual integrity than we think. In the long run, I did end up not hanging out with that friend. I did make the decision to tell my parents, hey, I don't need to go to her house. I don't need to spend the night at her house because this, and this is happening. And I'm sorry that I betrayed your trust. And I'm sorry that I did things I wasn't supposed to do. But I'm really scared for my safety and for hers. How do we fix this? Her parents didn't care. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have parents or people that are supposed to be your parents that don't really act like it. And that's why her house was so much fun to hang out at, because there were no rules and there were no boundaries. And that's how people get hurt. That's how lines get crossed. That's how you end up doing things that you don't want to do, and things happening to you that you don't want to happen. I know it seems weird. I know it seems kind of heavy at the moment. But I really want you to think about that. Where are you going? Who are you going with? Who are you going to be around? What is the plan? Because if you don't have a plan beforehand, you're going to end up making decisions that you don't want to make. You're going to end up in situations that can be awkward. They can be scary. It doesn't end well. It doesn't. It never does. Please have a plan before you go somewhere. If you still think it's cool to hang out with that person that doesn't have boundaries or rules, that's fine. But when it clicks in your brain like it did in mine that this isn't okay, this isn't safe, please know that I am here and you can come and talk to me about that. You find yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in at 3 a.m., guess what? You can call me. Yeah, I'm going to holler at you at 3 a.m. because you got me out of bed and you woke me up and I'm super pregnant, but I holler because I love you. I fuss at you because I care. Just saying. I'm going to fuss at you the whole way home, and then I'm going to tell you I love you. Yes, Christavius, we are having baby number 2. Okay, all right. Rein it in. We'll talk about that in a minute. And while we probably all agree that having boundaries is good, none of us like being told no. Even if we're being told no by ourselves, we don't like it. You don't like limiting yourself. You don't like missing out on the fun. That's horrible. Why would you do that? The problem is that at any time there's a boundary, we feel like it's limiting our freedom. And freedom is a great thing we want more of. I'll give you a silly example. You get money for your birthday. You want to blow it on whatever, right? But your parents tell you, hey, we know you've been wanting something that's expensive. You want new shoes. You want a new outfit. You want some poster. You want some new album, blah, 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 blah. There are 9,000 things. You want to go to a concert. You want to do this or that. Guess what? This birthday money that we're giving you needs to go towards that. You need to use your money wisely. Don't blow it getting fast food and snacks. Oh, but that's what you love. I understand. I get it.
Even as grown-ups, that's special when you drink.
I eat a lot, you're right. Okay, what if you, in an effort to save up money for something like what we just talked about, decided to show some restraint and self-control? 2 words, technically 3. Restraint and self-control. Whoa. You mean I have to make the choice to restrain myself? To have my own self-control? Me? But I was given all this money.
Yes.
I understand. Snacks are important.
They are.
The problem is that anytime there is a boundary, we want to push it. Yeah. Even though we created it, you still want to tiptoe it. You don't want to miss out. Well, I'll spend $5 this weekend so I can go hang out with so-and-so and I won't have to ask anybody for money. And then I'll save the rest. Well, how many more times are you going to compromise your boundary that you made?
The whole time you gotta spend all your money. Spend the money.
Okay, real hard facts. Philip does have a job, yes. Philip is the money maker in our family, absolutely. I do things on the side. I am painting downstairs. That is my money that I make. Philip makes money to pay our bills, to keep our house going, to keep our dogs alive, to keep the insurance up, to make sure that Sanders is well taken care of. Philip makes money that goes towards our cars, the food that we eat, the beds that we sleep in. Philip's job is not to buy Rachel shoes and clothes because she likes them and she wants expensive things. That's not how marriage works, guys. Let's circle back. Sorry for that. I feel like y'all needed to know. Just because you're married does not mean that you have somebody's income. That's not my income. That's money for our livelihood. Okay. After a while, you wouldn't like that either, would you? Even if you're the one who came up with this boundary, you still want to push against it. We like having space and freedom. We don't like being told what we can't do. In some ways, the same is true when it comes to sex. From the start of this series, some of us may have immediately rolled our eyes and thought, oh, here we go. Now we're just going to hear, don't have sex for the next few weeks. And you dreaded it. And that could be true. It could be. People who've been sexually active and people who haven't. It can be true for both of you, just so you know. Sometimes if we're being told no and we agree, we still don't like it. None of us like the way it feels if our boundaries are crossed or pressured. So no, you don't like being told no, that you can't do this, 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 and this. But what happens when somebody crosses a boundary with you? How do you react? How does that make you feel? Mad.
More nervous.
Exactly. You don't feel great, do you, when somebody crosses a line that you've clearly made?
Sometimes you let it happen because you want that person around.
If you've been asked to send a picture that you didn't want to send, or you were guilted into going further physically than you wanted to, then you know the feeling that came along with that. Whether or not you agreed to it, you still didn't like the way that it made you feel. You don't like the way that makes you feel. You don't. Nobody likes that feeling. It's not a fun feeling. In the same way, if you've ever been in the heat of the moment and placed pressure on someone else to do something, then once you came to your senses, you probably didn't like the way you felt about yourself. We've all got lines. We've all got boundaries. We all have limits. When you're dating somebody, respect their boundaries and their limits. Don't be the person that pushes somebody to do something else, to do more than what they're willing to do or that they want to do, because then you become a creep. And we have to talk about that. Boys and girls, like I said, it applies to everybody. Once you make somebody do something that they don't want to do, we have a bigger problem. They don't feel comfortable and you've done it. Congratulations. You now have to come talk to me and Josh about some of your life choices. It's not fun. We don't like the way it feels when lines are crossed or pushed, but what if limits and boundaries were never meant to be a bad thing? And what if they actually freed us up to make empowered decisions for ourselves? Oh my gosh. You mean that if I set a boundary or a line, that there is more freedom? There's less pressure on me? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you set those hard lines with people and you tell them, I'm not doing this, this, or this, and they ask you to do that, it becomes easier to say, well, I said no, and the answer is no, and you walk away from that. It's not fun. It's hard. But hey, you stuck up for yourself. That's important. So we're going to go full circle back to the garden. All right? We're going to go back to when God created all this and set it in motion. But before we do that, you have on your note sheet somewhere 1 Corinthians 6:18 through 20. Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Yikes. Your body that you think is yours is not. Not if you have Jesus living in you. Think about what you're doing. Think about it, guys. Think about it. It's hard. It's messy. Here's the thing. We are sexual beings. That means it's okay to have sexual desire, be physically attracted to someone else, and to be curious about sex. Sex is powerful and it's good. And because it's powerful and good, we are instructed to flee or run from sexual immorality and instead run towards sexual integrity. Paul is telling us that when we're about to cross boundary lines, we should go the other way. Think about it. You're getting ready to do something that you know is either going to make you feel terrible right now or make you feel terrible afterwards. Just saying no to that entire situation frees you up. But what is a boundary? The dictionary defines a boundary as a line that marks the limits of an area. Think of boundaries this way. It keeps something out. What outside threats might try to trick your value of sexual integrity? How do you keep them out? It keeps something in. What's valuable enough to be worth protecting? Doesn't have gaps or loopholes. Think about a fence around a park. If it doesn't provide safety, if there are gaps or weak places, when it comes to sexual integrity, what would it look like to have a gapless boundary? Can be seen from far away, whether inside or outside, how you might make your sexual integrity boundary obvious for yourself or others. And you might be thinking, of course, this is when she tells us sex is bad, it's gross, it's dirty, we shouldn't do it. It's not for us. If you have sex, you're going to make a baby and you're going to die. Yep, you're ready for that speech. I'm not going to give you that speech. Absolutely not. Nope. Not going to. That would make me a hypocrite. I'm not going to do that. True that. It sure does. I love him. God's intention for sex wasn't for it to be shameful. Do you know that? It wasn't meant for it to be shameful. Sex isn't something for you to be ashamed of. Christavius, I'm going to put you outside. Adam and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. Why is this verse even included in the Bible? So we can see God's intention. For people to be free. For Adam and Eve to be intimate with each other and feel no shame. For them to be completely known without feeling dirty or bad about it. Were they sexual beings? Yes, of course. God told them to make babies. This was simply the perfect world that God had created for them. Now you might be thinking, all right, that sounds great. They were free, which means they had no boundaries. That's not what I said. That's absolutely not what I said. I said they had no shame. I did not say they didn't have boundaries. I said they had no shame in the fact that they were naked and they were intimate with each other. Because God created Adam and Eve for that purpose. He created Adam, and then he said, you know what? Adam needs a person. So he created Eve as his person. And then God said, this is good. He created a perfect world for them. Yeah, they were naked. They were supposed to be. Clothes hadn't been invented yet. Why? Because sin had not entered the world yet. So it's not that I said that they didn't have boundaries. I said they didn't have any shame. Hold on. We're getting there. I just have to find my place because I tore off. In fact, if you move forward a chapter, you read this verse. He answered, I heard you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. What happened?
He was shy or scared.
But what happened? Sin. They ate the apple. God created a boundary. He gave them everything in that garden, and he said, you know what? There's a tree over here. And that one tree, you cannot eat from that one tree. You can't do it. Don't do it. And what did they do?
They ate it.
They ate it. That's right.
It was good.
Once the boundary was gone, that's when they felt fearful and ashamed. Adam and Eve saw boundaries from the beginning. There was a boundary separating the sky and earth, light and dark, and the sea and the land. Humans were placed within the garden. That was their boundary. There was a certain tree they couldn't eat from. Again, a boundary. There was a place for everything, and every boundary that God created was for Adam and Eve. Every boundary that was created was for Adam and Eve. It was for their own benefit. It was to keep them safe. It was to keep them free and happy, to keep them from sinning, to keep them from being dirty feeling and that shameful feeling. Boundaries are good and boundaries are powerful. When we decide that our boundary will be to live with sexual integrity and we honor that boundary and the boundaries of others, we actually begin to experience the type of life and sexual integrity God designed for us. So I have 2 things for you. 2 habits for you to put into practice. First, honor your boundaries. Start looking for healthy ways to implement boundaries in all kinds of areas of your life, not just in your sexual life. What could that look like? Practice saying no. Say no. If you can practice saying no to small things like watching a movie you don't want to see, hanging out with people you don't want to hang out with, or scrolling all night, even if you kind of want to, it will help you feel more comfortable saying no when the stakes are higher. You'll become more confident at using your voice to express what's not okay with you. Start small. If saying no is hard for you, start small. Don't know what's going on over there. That's exactly what's happening. Decide how you want to be treated. Determine right now what honor looks like to you. Set the standard for what's okay and what's not okay when it comes to how others treat you. Then tell somebody you trust. Someone who can look out for you and make sure you're getting the honor you deserve. Pre-deciding will help you stick to your standard and help you recognize when you are not being honored. Pay attention to situations. Pay attention to them. Decide right now how you want to be treated, how you want to be honored. Say something. It's possible that some of you have asked to be honored and not given your consent, which is another word for permission. Hear me when I say this. But your voice wasn't respected. And because of that, you're dealing with things like guilt, shame, anger, and secrecy. That's a lot, and I'm very sorry. I'm sorry that somebody took what was yours and used it against you. I'm sorry that you were disrespected and that you weren't honored. I am. I am here to listen to you. Brittany is here to listen to you. Austin, Philip, Josh, we are here. Callie's here. If something has happened to you, please come and talk to us. You don't need to go through that alone, because that's an awful lot to go through by yourself. Please don't confuse your feelings of wrong with feelings of guilt. No one should ever feel guilty for something that someone else did to them. What was done to you was an honor, but you need to know that you still deserve to be honored. You are still worthy. You are still loved. You are still important. There is a God and He has a plan, a big one. Don't let what somebody did to you define who you are. Don't let that ugly hold you back. Okay? You should still expect honor. One of the best ways you can expect honor is to say something and share what has happened to you with someone you love and trust, someone who wants to honor you by helping you through this experience. Speak up. We will listen. We will listen very hard and very closely. All you have to do is tell us. Okay? Next, honor their boundaries. Be the kind of person who knows how to respect other people. Ask yourself, am I doing what's best for the other person despite what I want from them? Look at your choices, words and behaviors, then look at your relationships. Do you show honor in all of them? If you don't, you need to fix that. That's a serious thing that you need to fix. If you're not honoring people in all of your relationships, why are you having relationships with them? If it's for selfish gain, remember that crosses a line and we have to have a talk about it. Understand that consent, permission is a step toward respect. Consent is definitely important and it's a huge part of honoring other people. But don't view your relationships, behaviors, and choices through the lens of what other people said yes or didn't say no to. Instead, look at it through the lens of honoring what's best for them. It doesn't matter if you've already had sex with that person and that person tells you no. The answer is no. Respect it. It's that simple. I'm sorry that you don't get to get off now. That sounds like a personal problem. It is not their responsibility to make you feel better about yourself.
That's good.
Accept the no. Sometimes one of the easiest ways to honor others is simply to listen to their no. When someone tells you no, they mean it. So honor them by stopping right then and there. In addition, sometimes we need to pay attention to the no that you feel in your conscience. Even when you want to say yes, even when the other person is saying yes or isn't saying no. What does that mean? That means when you're going at it and you're hot and heavy in the back seat of your two-door truck, whatever, and it's tiny and things are getting real, if in the back of your mind you know, I shouldn't do this, stop.
Don't keep going.
Exactly. Do not stop. And if you're with a person that's not giving you enough time to say, stop, I don't want to do this, get out of the vehicle.
And run.
All right. All right. God wanted it to be good. And part of what made it good was boundaries. You can't hear me if you're giggling. God wanted sex to be good. And part of what made it good was boundaries. Imagine if it led to more freedom and less shame. Whoa. I know y'all are laughing and giggling about it, but I'm just saying that's a real thing. What if we actually experienced more of what God intended by practicing these boundaries in our own lives? Imagine if it led to more freedom and less shame. That is what God wants for us. And this is what God will do to help us. Boundaries are good. Boundaries are powerful.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have finished our 4-week talk about sex.